was working on a how to play Pharmacy Union video, and I realized that I kind of needed to do like a math video on the bonus before, so I could be able to reference that in my how to play video. So yeah, that's what it is. I don't usually like doing two math videos that close. We had the Aridor one, which explained how Aridor is just much better than everyone else 2 weeks ago, but yeah, I kind of have to do it. I really want to do that how to play Pharmacy Union video, and I have to do this first. So yeah, that Pharmacy Union video is probably gonna be up 3 weeks from now because I got a gameplay and a tier list already recorded. But I pushed these forward so that we can also not have 2 Pharmacy Union videos straight back to back in case you don't like that. So yeah, let's do some Pharmacy Union math. Yay! So remember, Pharmacy Union start with 2 microtags and 54 cash, which is really 46, and you'll see why. Every time anyone, including yourself, plays a microtag, you lose 4 cash and you get a disease resource. And every time you play a science, you destroy a disease resource and you gain 1 TR. Which means, and if you have no resources, so if the science tags you've played are ever more than the total microtags played, then you gain 3 TR. You flip it over and you gain 3 TR. So what that means basically, let's look at the spreadsheet here. Yeah, let's explain the spreadsheet first. So what you have is science tags, number of science tags played in the generation, number of microtags played in the generation, the diseases that will result in, the TR you will have from that, and the total mega credits. And we're mostly doing economic analysis. Obviously every TR is also a point, but so let's say you start with 2 microtags and then you play 0 science tags. What that means is you're down 8. Now if you play 1 science tag, you're still down 8, but that also means you will get 1 TR. So if you do 0 and 0 here, you can see now you have 1 TR, which is 1 production, and so you start like by Gen 2, I'm doing the TR 1 gen later so that it works as production, essentially. But yeah, what that means is essentially you have 1 production and you start backing out. So if you just like stay here throughout the game, you'll eventually get a positive number, right? It's a faster way to put zeros in, I'm sure. Well, there you go. You'll eventually get to 2. Now this is not what you want to do with Pharmacy Union, obviously. I think we can agree that the best possible play for many people, and that's what we're about to see if it's true, is that you get your 2 micro resources and you put 3 science resources. And once you get 3 science resources, now the card flips, right? So it doesn't matter what you do after here. So if I can play 5 tags of each, it's not affecting it, right? I have my 5 production because I have the 2 TR from the first 2 science tags plus 3 from the third one. And then I'm gonna get really quickly somewhere else. So, you know, it really doesn't matter what you do here. So let's just do zeros to keep it simple. Doesn't matter what you play after this, right? So obviously this scenario is very good. By Gen 11, you have 42 cash, which is really nice. And by Gen 10, you have 37, and you have 5 victory points, right? It is rare, and that's my son yawning. And you do get to draw a science tag, so that makes it a little more possible. But the first thing I want to do is see if we can optimize this. So let's do the same thing here. And by the way, all these sections are the same. I just want to be able to have them side to side. But let's just do the same thing here. But instead of flipping, we're going to try and see what's the optimal time to flip it. Right? Assuming that you can both play, or you can control you have a lot of science, let's just say, and you just have control over when you can flip it. Now let's also assume that you can only play, you and your opponent can both play at most 1 tag per turn, because, I mean, obviously, like if you play 10 here and your opponent does 2, and then you flip it here, that's gonna be amazing, right? Because You get a lot of TR and a lot of production. All right, so yeah, that's gonna be amazing. But realistically, if you had a lot of science, let's say you can play 2 in Gen 1 to keep it optimal, and then from then on you can play at most 1 per gen, right? So I want to see when is the optimal time. So this is just, let's just say you have a crazy science hand, you have card draw, and you can just afford to let your opponent play micro attacks, or you yourself play micro attacks if they're not playing them. You can afford to do that. When is the optimal time economically to flip, right? So let's see, oops, Gen 2, instead of going 3-2 like I did on the right here, we just go 1-0, right? And so that's actually less cash, right? So let's let's instead do it Gen 3. We're getting closer, right? It's 41. What if we do Gen 4? Now it's tight. What if we do Gen 5? Still tight. Gen 6, you're done. So with this, you can see that it's hard to be better than this economically, right? Because again, Gen 2, you flip it Gen 2, you're down 39 to 42. If you flip it Gen 3, 41 to 42. If you flip it Gen 4, right, it's flipping in Gen 4, it's 42 to 42. Gen 5, 42 to 42. And after that, you're down again, right? Because at that point, production is less important. So this is pretty optimal in as far as how you play it, right? Now there's another scenario we could go, instead of 1-1, we can go 2-1. Just assume you can once play a second one. Now you're better in Gen 2. You're a little better if you do a Gen 3. Still 45 on Gen 5. And you're back to 44. Sorry, still 45 on Gen 4 and you're back to 45 on Gen 5. So what this means is that basically the cash benefit of not doing this is negligible, assuming you can only play 1 science stack per turn, which I think is reasonable. Like I said, if you play 10 and 10, that's obviously, it was 87. But if you can afford 1 science stack per turn, even if you think you're just gonna always have an endless supply of science stacks, the economic benefit is nothing. So economically, it's not worth the risk. Obviously, you're getting 4 more points here, so that might be worth it. But yeah, that's sort of the first thing I wanted to compare. Now, this is all assuming very good scenarios for Pharmacy Union, which is that you basically have control over the number of resources, right? Because I'm keeping them at 0 here, which means you're in your best possible scenario until you flip, right? Always. It's always at 0 until at some point you flip, and then you gain your additional income. You go to 90R. Is that correct? Yeah. Go to 90R and then you're good. So the conclusion is, like, don't do this. If all you care about is economics, flip it as soon as possible. That's the moral here. But now let's look at some bad scenarios. And I'm going to leave the early flip there to compare. But let's look at some bad scenarios to see how bad you do. So let's delete this, and let's look at the scenario of being a couple of gens behind, but keeping the diseases low. So let's just say, you don't have the cards in Gen 1, okay? And then Gen 2 you get them. You're 1 gen behind essentially, your opponent doesn't get them. But Gen 3 your opponent gets 1. You get that in Gen 4. And so we go, right? So we're just gonna do this a bunch of times. And then, all right, let's say you actually flip it here. Okay, so you get 60 Rs, and it's not unreasonable. It will actually flip, so it'll go to 9 after that. But yeah, you'll get 90. Let's flip it 1 gen earlier. So let's just flip it here, so we get the full effect. Yeah, you'll get 9 points, which is nice. But economically, you are losing the whole game, right? Just because you're a gen behind your opponent. If he plays 2 micro attacks, then you have to wait 1 gen to play 2 science attacks. And yeah, my son is very happy in the back. I woke him up, so it's my fault. He was yawning, you heard him, and now he's wide awake. So, and he's laughing, so we like that he's laughing. But yeah, you're just 1 gen behind until you flip Gen 9. And you're basically behind on cash the whole game. The -4 is a really big penalty. However, it's worse if you're not gens behind but microbes behind. So what does that mean? Let's just say you have your science stacks every generation, but your opponent did 2. So let's just say, okay, you have the initial 2 and you have your 2 science stack, but your opponent had 2 microbe attacks. And from then on, it's 1 and 1, right? And at this point, this is probably ridiculous, right? You're not going to play... If your opponent plays this many micro attacks, I'll probably lose the game, because micro attacks kind of suck. But you can see, like, it really in the middle here. Well, from the beginning to, like, Gen 7, you are down a lot of cash. You're not making this back. Now, let's be a little more realistic. Let's just say eventually you catch up. So let's say your opponent runs out here. And you eventually catch up. And then let's just say you don't play this. Right, you flipped here. Like, you're still down for the most part here. And this is, I mean, it's still high. This is 9 micro attacks. Sorry, 8 micro attacks. But that means you have to play 9 science stacks, which is even higher, right? So what the point is like being to having a high disease count here is really bad. Even if you're playing more science stacks. So you see, like, TR here is 6, TR here is 3. So you have way better production here, but you're still down double. Like here you're down 6 cash, here you're down 12 cash. And what that means basically is you have to, like, if you're behind on diseases, you're in big trouble. And what being behind on diseases is a consequence of is really just not having enough science stacks, or not having a lot of control over the deck, which means your opponent gets more access to micro attacks, or not blocking micro attacks from your opponent. You really have to block the good micro attacks, right? So yeah, that's the other thing that I wanted to show, that like you have to keep this at 0. If you keep this at 0, let's look at the scenario where you never flip it, but you keep it at 0 the whole game. Right, so what's that? Right, so you keep it at 0 the whole game, economically you're fine. Like, even if we sprinkle, a couple of tags, like let's say every other turn you both. You see, so like as long as you, obviously this is worse because it's not, the production is coming pretty late for you. Actually, let's get rid of that there because that's not counting the production. Production is coming in pretty late for you, but like this is manageable. Like -5 cash to -2, Gen 4 to Gen 7. It's not really noticeable, and you're getting 6 points, so that's totally worth it. And you never flipped it here, right? So the key thing is that you think you can keep the disease tokens to 0. And yeah, I think that's all I wanted to show for this video. It's really those two things. One, dream scenario, economically is this. Obviously for points, the more science stacks you play, even if you don't flip it, like you just go 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1. And let's just do ones too. Let's say one goes nuts at the first, and then does 1. Right? Like, so this is gonna be an economic disaster. Actually, not that bad. Yeah, not that bad because you have better production, right? But you're still 2 diseases here. So whenever you're 2 diseases behind, you're going to be down for a long time, economically. And you'll see if you just reduce that to like 0, you're fine for the most part. Of course, this is a lot of points. So that's the other thing to consider. Now, I don't want to like dive too much into what this all means because, like I said, I have the how to play coming up. But the main thing is, even if you don't manage to flip it, you want to keep these as close to zero and as fast as possible. So don't hold on to your time science tags. And number two, economically, you're not beating these. Like you can get more. I mean, you can buy a couple of cash maybe, but realistically, you're not beating it. You can get more points, but economically, this is really good. So yeah, that's all I have for today. Let me know what you think, and see you next time.